You comfortable with the expression self-disclosure?
Yes.
Okay. They had to engage in self-disclosures, which indicated and if they were entitled to talk?
Mr. Elberg, it's somewhat more complicated than that. The first 3 talks, the guidelines in writing in the clinical manual, which I believe you've been provided a copy of, indicate that all they have to do is to comply with treatment. They don't have to make any great progress about disclosing things. They simply have to adapt to the treatment program, not act out, not break rules, and they have talk with their parents.
Could you earn talk with your parents without motivating and talking about yourself in group?
No, but the first 3 talks, if the person talked 2 or 3 times in the 3 or 4 day period, evaluation period, that would have been sufficient for the first 3 talks, and not to be even horribly self-disclosing.
Let me just back up. Was there a period after they first got to kids when they couldn't talk even in group?
That's correct. The first 14 days. Oh, I'm sorry.
When they couldn't talk in group at all?
Yes. It officially on paper was 3 days, but that included their intake day. So it was really 2 days that they had to acclimate themselves to the situation, to listen and figure out what's going on.
So for those first 2 days, they didn't get to motivate?
They could motivate if they wanted to.
But they wouldn't be called on?
They probably wouldn't be called on.
Okay. And after that, they would start motivating and talking about themselves?
Yes.
And could they earn talk without talking about themselves?
No, but they wouldn't have to be particularly searching or disclosing.
Well, if they got up and the talk they delivered about themselves was a talk which basically said, I don't belong here. Why am I here? This is a big mistake. I want to go home. I take it that kind of participation in the therapeutic process was not going to get them talk with their parents.
No, I don't think it would.
Okay. So the kind of talk they had to engage in was a talk in which they acknowledged, admitted, engaging in the kind of conduct that justified their being there.
If in fact what they were owning up was conduct they really participated in.
Well, how could they earn talk without admitting that they belonged there?
Nobody asked them to admit or not admit in the early part of the days, just to talk about what was going on in their life. And there were kids who went for a considerable period of time still not being sure in their head they wanted to be there or should be there, but as long as they were legitimately working on themselves and issues in their life, they earned talk. Nobody expected them to reach the conclusion early in their talks that they belonged there or wanted to be there.
They did have to, though, admit to engaging in conduct that made it appropriate for them to be there, did they not?
If it's conduct they really engaged in, that's correct.
Well, if it was not conduct they really engaged in, and they hadn't engaged in any conduct that made it appropriate for them to be there, they had a big problem, didn't they?
They did, but that's sort of an oxymoron, because you don't get to a place like the kids program unless you've really caused a whole lot of problems very visibly with your family and other people before you arrive.
Mm-hmm. But of course, in the case of Lulu Corda, you have no idea what those problems are.
Doesn't mean they weren't there.
Mm-hmm.
It just means I don't have specific recall about it, and we don't have a record available that I can review. That's all it means.
Do you know of anybody who might be able to assist us in finding out what those specific problems were?
Not right off the top of my head, because I don't. See, I have the same problem. I don't know who was involved in her admission. I don't know who was involved with dealing with her in sibling group sessions on Monday and Friday nights. So without that information, without the record in front of me, I have no way to say who might know.
Couldn't you contact other kids, staff members, and patients and ask until you found somebody who knew? It's not so hard.
First of all, I have a current life where my job is not necessarily to do the work either to defend or to prosecute this particular case. Prosecute in a sense, that's a wrong term. I don't know what the appropriate term is for a civil case. The second thing is, I thought it would be slightly inappropriate for me to be running around talking to people who were other potential witnesses in the case. And ethically, at least what I understand from forensic psychological practice, is it's okay for me to look at the records, but it is not okay for me to talk to other people, even who potentially are witnesses on the side of the program about the case. And so I specifically will not do that.
If somebody sat in group and didn't participate, didn't talk, and didn't motivate, could they earn talk?
They could not.
How could they get out of there? How could they leave?
Put through a request to leave. And they could do like some kids did, stand up in open meeting and scream out, get me the, and I won't supply the four-letter words, out of here. And that happened.